$47.16. That's what Margaret Chun had in her checking account when she walked into the Peninsula Hotel, wearing a coat held together with safety pins. The doorman didn't stop her. Not yet. She moved through the gilded lobby like she belonged there, her worn shoes silent on Italian marble that cost more per square foot than her monthly rent. The air smelled of imported roses and money, that particular scent of wealth that's part perfume, part leather, part something she could never quite name. She wasn't there to steal. She was there to clean. Margaret had worked as a housekeeper at the Peninsula for 3 months, always through the service entrance, always invisible. But today the agency sent her to cover the grand ballroom setup for the Chun Luxury brand's anniversary gala. The irony wasn't lost on her. Chun was her name too, though no one at this hotel would ever connect the two. The ballroom took her breath away despite herself. Crystal chandeliers refracted light into 1,000 rainbows. Tables dressed in silk, not linen. Each place setting worth more than she made in a week. She began her work, polishing already spotless surfaces, arranging chairs that were already perfectly aligned. "You there?" Margaret turned. A woman stood in the doorway, mid-30s, razor-sharp bob, wearing a dress that probably cost 6 months of Margaret's salary. Everything about her screamed authority, from her Louboutin heels to the clipboard she wielded like a weapon. "I'm Elena Zhao, Director of Events for Chun Luxury Brands. Why are you working in here? The gala starts in 2 hours. The agency sent me. I'm finishing the setup." Elena's eyes traveled down Margaret's body, cataloging every worn thread, every visible repair. Her lip curled. "The agency sent you? Looking like that?" Margaret felt heat crawl up her neck. "I have my uniform. I'll change before." "You think a uniform will help?" Elena stepped closer. "This is the most important event of the year. We have board members flying in from Paris, Tokyo, Dubai, Michelin star chefs, and they send me someone who looks like she can't afford to eat at McDonald's." The other setup workers had stopped pretending not to listen. Margaret counted 5 pairs of eyes, watching her humiliation. "I'm just here to do my job." "Your job?" Elena laughed, a sound like breaking glass. "Do you have any idea what's at stake tonight? Chun Luxury Brands is celebrating 40 years of excellence. The founder will be here. Her son, the CEO, is flying in from Singapore. We're unveiling a new collection worth $50 million. And you think you're qualified to be in this room?" Margaret's hands were shaking. She pressed them against her thighs. "I'll do good work. I always do. Always." Elena picked up one of the water glasses Margaret had just polished. She held it up to the light, searching for imperfections she would never find. "You know what I see? Someone who doesn't understand her place. Someone who thinks showing up is enough." She turned the glass over. Water splashed across Margaret's face, cold and shocking, dripping down her cheeks, soaking into her collar. The room went silent. Margaret stood frozen, water running down her neck, her face burning with shame. She could taste it on her lips. Expensive filtered water. Even that was better than what she had at home. "Get out," Elena said quietly. "Call your agency and tell them to send someone appropriate. Someone who knows what a place like this demands." Margaret didn't move. Couldn't move. 23 years of working, of surviving, of making herself small and quiet and useful. And it came to this. Water on her face in front of strangers. Proof that no matter how hard she worked, some people would always see her as less than. She turned to leave. She had to. She needed this job. Needed the agency to keep calling her. Needed every dollar of those $47.16, and whatever she could earn on top of them. "Margaret." The voice came from the doorway. Male. Uncertain. Margaret stopped. She knew that voice. Hadn't heard it in 16 years, but she knew it the way you know your own heartbeat. She turned around. A man stood in the ballroom entrance. Mid-30s. Expensive suit cut to perfection. Face she used to kiss goodnight every single evening until he was 13 and everything fell apart. Features that matched her own. The same deep-set eyes. The same stubborn chin. Jason Chun. Her son. He looked at her like he was seeing a ghost. Maybe he was. "Mom." Elena's head snapped toward him. Mr. Chun, I'm so sorry. There was a situation with the staffing agency. I was just handling it. This woman, Jason said, his voice strange and hollow, is my mother. The water on Margaret's face felt like it was freezing. She watched emotions cascade across Jason's features. Shock, confusion, something that might have been pain. Elena went white. But the founder is. My grandmother, Jason finished. My mother is Margaret Chin. He took a step forward. Mom, what are you doing here? What was she doing here? Working, surviving, existing in the same city as her son, but not in his life, because that was the deal she'd made 16 years ago when everything shattered. I work here, she said quietly. I'm with the housekeeping agency. She watched him process this, watched him understand that his mother, who used to make him breakfast and help with homework and dream of all the things he might become, was now cleaning hotel ballrooms where people who knew her son would celebrate wealth she would never touch. You've been in New York? His voice cracked on the question. This whole time. Jason, I can explain. Mr. Chun. Elena had recovered some composure, though her voice still shook. I had no idea. If I had known, I would never. The gala is starting soon, and we need to finish preparations. Perhaps we should discuss this later. Jason didn't look at her. His eyes were locked on Margaret, and she saw in them all the questions, all the anger, all the hurt of a 13-year-old boy who came home one day to find his mother gone. Everyone out, he said. Sir, everyone out of this room. Now. The setup crew fled. Elena stood her ground for exactly 3 seconds before Jason's expression sent her scurrying toward the door. She paused at the threshold. Mr. Chun, the gala. I'll handle it. The door closed. Mother and son stood in a ballroom designed for celebration, surrounded by luxury that might as well have been from another planet, the water still drying on Margaret's face like evidence of everything that had gone wrong. Tell me, Jason said. Tell me why you left. Tell me where you've been. Tell me why I had to find out my mother is alive by walking into a hotel and seeing her get humiliated by my event director. Margaret took a breath. The truth was going to hurt him, but lies had already cost her 16 years. I didn't leave, she said. I was forced out. The story came out in pieces, sharp-edged and painful. Margaret had been a jewelry designer once. Not famous, not wealthy, but talented. She'd married David Chun, son of textile magnate Vivian Chun, back when love seemed like enough and David promised his mother would come around. Vivian Chun never came around. For 10 years, she tolerated Margaret. Barely. Every family dinner was a test Margaret failed. Every milestone was an opportunity to point out her inadequacies. Too poor. Wrong background. Not sophisticated enough. Not educated at the right schools. Not connected to the right people. When David died in a car accident, Margaret lost more than her husband. She lost her shield. Your grandmother gave me a choice, Margaret said, each word carefully chosen. Keep you and live in poverty while she used every legal resource to prove I was an unfit mother, or sign over custody, and she'd provide for your education, your future, everything you'd need. Jason's jaw clenched. That's not a choice. That's extortion. That's what I thought too, for about 5 minutes. Then I looked at you, 13 years old, grieving your father, and I thought about what I could give you versus what she could. I had nothing. No job prospects. No family. No money. She had everything. She had money. That's not everything. To a 13-year-old who just lost his father? Jason, she could keep you in your same school, same friends, same home. She could give you therapy and tutors and opportunities and a future. What could I offer? An apartment I couldn't afford. Watching me work 3 jobs and still struggle. Watching me fail. So you just left. I fought her for 3 months. She hired investigators. They photographed me at my worst. Made everything I did look like neglect. I was working 18-hour days trying to keep us afloat, and they made it look like I abandoned you. They twisted everything. Margaret's voice broke. She steadied it. Her lawyers sat me down and showed me what a custody battle would look like. Character assassination. Public humiliation. And at the end of it, I'd probably lose anyway. Except you'd have watched me lose. You'd have heard terrible things about me. Things that weren't true but would sound true. And I'd have spent every penny I had, and probably gone into debt, fighting a battle I couldn't win. You should have told me. You were 13. I was old enough to have a say in my own life. Were you? Margaret met his eyes. Really? If I'd told you what your grandmother was doing, what would you have done? Chosen poverty with me out of loyalty? Spent your life wondering if you'd made the right choice? I couldn't do that to you. Jason turned away, hands in his pockets, shoulders tight. The deal was that I never knew where you were, that I thought you just abandoned me. The deal was that I disappeared and let your grandmother tell you whatever she wanted. I wasn't allowed contact. If I tried to reach you, the deal was off, and she'd cut off your support. And you've been here? In New York? The whole time? Not the whole time. I spent 2 years in California. Try to start over. But I needed to be closer, even if I couldn't see you. So I came back 3 years ago. 3 years. Jason's voice rose. You've been in the same city for 3 years? I saw you once. At a coffee shop in Midtown. You were with someone laughing. You looked happy. Successful. Everything I'd hoped you'd become. And I thought, maybe I made the right choice after all. That wasn't your choice to make alone. Maybe not, but it was the only one I could live with. Jason turned back to her. His eyes were red. She told me you didn't want me, that you'd met someone else, and your new life didn't have room for a kid. She said you took money and signed away your rights. She said you never looked back. The words hit Margaret like physical blows. None of that is true. I know that now. His voice was raw, but I didn't know it for 16 years. Do you understand what that did to me? Thinking my mother chose anything over me? I'm sorry. The words were pathetically inadequate. I'm so sorry, Jason. He wiped his eyes roughly. I have a million questions. I'll answer all of them. Every single one. But not right now. He checked his watch, a gesture so familiar it hurt. David used to do the same thing. I have a gala starting in 90 minutes. My grandmother will be here in 45. And I need to figure out what the hell to do about all of this. You don't have to do anything. I'll leave. I'll call the agency. This never has to. Don't. The word came out sharp. He softened his tone. Don't leave. Not again. Just stay here. Please. Jason. I'll send someone with clothes. Something appropriate. You're staying for the gala. I can't. Your grandmother. My grandmother lied to me for 16 years. She threw water in your face by proxy. And she's about to find out that I know. Margaret's stomach clenched. This isn't the time. It's her anniversary gala. Jason, please don't. Don't what? Confront her? Defend you? Mom, she made you sign away your rights, and then made me believe you didn't love me. When exactly is the appropriate time to address that? After you've thought about it. After you've calmed down. Not in front of 300 people. Maybe an audience is exactly what we need. She spent 16 years controlling the narrative. Maybe it's time for the truth. He walked to the door, then paused. There are private bathrooms through that side entrance. Clean up. I'll have something sent over. Size 6. 8 now. Okay. Size 8. He opened the door, then looked back. For what it's worth, I don't think you made the wrong choice. I think you made an impossible one. But I still wish you'd chosen differently. The door closed behind him. Margaret stood alone in the ballroom, water still damp on her collar, Jason's words echoing off crystal and silk. She walked to one of the massive mirrors along the wall and looked at herself. 53 years old, face lined with work and worry, hands rough from cleaning solutions. Nothing like the young woman who'd married into the Chin family full of hope. She should leave. Should walk out now before this got worse. But Jason had asked her to stay, and she'd spent 16 years without him. She wasn't strong enough to walk away again. Through the side entrance, she found a marble bathroom bigger than her entire apartment. She washed her face, fixed her hair as best she could, and waited. 20 minutes later, A young woman appeared with a garment bag and a makeup case. She looked nervous. Mr. Chen sent me. I'm Sophie from wardrobe. He said to make sure everything fits perfectly. She unzipped the bag. The dress inside was midnight blue, simple but elegant. Probably cost more than Margaret made in 6 months. Designer label. Perfect cut. I can't wear this. Mr. Chen was very clear. He said you're to be dressed as an honored guest. Sophie pulled out shoes, jewelry, a wrap. He's moving your name to the family table. The family table? Margaret's voice went faint. Sophie, I can't. He's the CEO. What he says goes. Sophie started unpacking makeup. We have 40 minutes. Let's get started. Getting dressed in borrowed luxury felt like putting on a costume. Sophie worked efficiently, applying makeup, styling hair, making Margaret look like someone who belonged at a Chun luxury brand's gala. The woman in the mirror was elegant, polished, almost unrecognizable. You look beautiful, Sophie said. Really? I look like someone I'm not. Mr. Chen said you look like yourself. The self you should have been allowed to be. Margaret's throat tightened. He said that. He's been on the phone for the last 20 minutes. I've never seen him so intense. Intense was one word for it. Margaret could imagine others. Angry, hurt, determined. Sophie left. Margaret stayed in the bathroom, watching herself in the mirror, until a soft knock announced another visitor. Mrs. Chen? I'm David Wu, Mr. Chen's executive assistant. He asked me to escort you to your seat. David Wu was young, professional, and carefully neutral. He led her through service corridors to avoid the arriving guests, then into the ballroom through a side entrance. The transformation was complete. The room Margaret had been cleaning an hour ago now glowed with candlelight and flowers. Guests in designer clothes clustered near the bar. String quartet playing something classical. Everyone looked rich, confident, like they'd never doubted their place in the world. Your seat is here. David indicated a chair at a table near the stage. Mr. Chen will join you shortly. This is the family table. Yes, ma'am. Who else will be sitting here? David's expression flickered. Mrs. Vivian Chen, her assistant, 2 board members, Mr. Chen, and you. Margaret's hands went cold. I can't sit at the same table as. Mr. Chen was very specific about the arrangements. David, this is a mistake. His grandmother doesn't know I'm. She will soon. His tone was gentle. Mr. Chen is meeting with her now. He wanted me to tell you that you don't have to stay if you don't want to. But if you choose to stay, he'll be there beside you. Those were his exact words. Margaret looked at the empty chair next to hers, Jason's seat. She imagined sitting there, watching Vivian Chen's face when she realized who was at her table. It would be a disaster, a humiliation for everyone involved. The smart thing would be to leave now. But Jason had asked her to stay. She sat down. The ballroom filled gradually. Women in gowns that cost more than cars. Men in custom suits. The smell of expensive perfume mixing with imported roses. Laughter that sounded rehearsed. These were people who lived at the top of the world, and they knew it. Margaret kept her eyes down, studying the place setting. 11 pieces of silverware. Crystal glasses in 3 sizes. A menu card in elegant calligraphy promising courses she'd never heard of. Excuse me. A woman with impossibly white teeth leaned across from the next table. I don't think we've met. Are you with the Paris office? No, I'm. What was she? A friend of Jason's. Oh, how lovely. I'm Patricia Winters. My husband is on the board. We simply adore Jason. Such a brilliant young man. Are you in fashion? No. Patricia waited for more information. Margaret didn't provide it. After an awkward beat, Patricia smiled again and turned away. More people arrived. The ballroom buzzed with conversation. Margaret checked her watch. 7 minutes until the official start. Then she saw Vivian Chen. 16 years hadn't been kind, but money had softened the blow. Vivian was 74 now, hair perfectly silver, wearing a champagne-colored gown that probably cost more than a car. She moved through the crowd like a queen, accepting greetings and compliments with practiced grace. She was 10 feet from the family table when she saw Margaret. Vivian stopped, just froze mid-step, her expression cycling through confusion, recognition, and something that might have been fear before settling into cold fury. She changed direction, walking straight to Margaret's chair. "What are you doing here?" Margaret stood. Her legs felt unsteady. "Jason invited me." "Jason doesn't know you're alive. I made sure of that." "He knows now." Vivian's face went pale, then red. "You're lying. You signed a contract. You took money. You agreed to stay out of our lives." "I never took money. And I signed that contract under duress." "Under duress?" Vivian's voice rose. "I offered you a fortune to disappear. You took it and ran. You offered me nothing. You threatened to destroy me in court and traumatize Jason in the process. You gave me an impossible choice and called it mercy. You had a choice. You chose yourself. I chose Jason." Margaret's voice shook but held. "I chose what was best for him, even though it destroyed me. That's what mothers do. Don't you dare talk to me about motherhood. You abandoned your son. You forced me out and spent 16 years lying to him about why." Vivian's hand came up. For a moment, Margaret thought she was about to be slapped. But instead, Vivian pointed toward the exit. "Get out. Now. Before I have security remove you." "She's not going anywhere." Jason's voice cut through the tension. He stood 5 feet away, watching his grandmother with an expression Margaret had never seen on him. Cold. Furious. Unmovable. "Jason." Vivian's tone shifted instantly. "Thank goodness you're here. This woman, she's pretending to be your mother. She's clearly mentally unstable. I'll call security and—" "Stop. One word. Flat and final." Vivian stopped. Jason walked to Margaret's side. He didn't touch her, but his presence was a wall between her and his grandmother. "I know who she is. I know what you did. And if you don't sit down and have a civil dinner, I will walk up to that microphone in 10 minutes and tell everyone here exactly what kind of person you really are." "You wouldn't dare. Try me." The ballroom had gone quiet around them. Not everyone could hear the conversation, but everyone could see it. The CEO facing down the founder. The young man standing up to the matriarch. It was better than theater. Vivian looked between Jason and Margaret, calculating. "We'll discuss this later. Privately. We'll discuss it now, at this table, like adults. Or we'll discuss it publicly from that stage. Your choice." Vivian's lips pressed into a thin line. She sat down, her movements stiff with rage. Jason pulled out Margaret's chair. She sat. He took his own seat beside her. The string quartet started playing. Waiters emerged with the first course. Conversation resumed around them, though every eye at nearby tables kept drifting to the family table, where some kind of drama was clearly unfolding. Margaret stared at her plate. Scallop crudo with microgreens. She had no appetite. "Jason," Vivian said quietly, "you're making a mistake." "Really?" "Because from where I'm sitting, you made the mistake 16 years ago. I protected you. You lied to me. I gave you opportunities your mother never could have provided. You gave me everything except the truth." Vivian leaned forward. "That woman left you. She chose her freedom over being your mother. I know it hurts to accept, but she left because you threatened her. You used your money and power to force her out, and then you spent 16 years making me believe she didn't love me. I gave her a choice. That wasn't a choice." Jason's hand clenched around his fork. "That was extortion. And it worked. She left. I grieved. You got what you wanted. But it's over now." "Over." Vivian's laugh was bitter. "You think you can just undo 16 years? You think having her here changes anything?" "It changes everything." Margaret found her voice. "Jason, please. Not here. Not like this." He turned to her. "When then? When is the right time to tell the truth? When is it okay to call out cruelty?" "After the gala. Tomorrow. Any time but now." "Why? So grandmother can have her perfect evening? So we can all pretend everything is fine?" "Because you only get one chance to handle this right," Margaret said. "And doing it publicly, when you're angry, isn't right. It's just revenge." Jason sat back. She could see him struggling with it. Vivian seized the moment. Listen to her. At least she has some sense of propriety. Don't. Margaret turned to Vivian. Don't use me to manipulate him. You've done enough of that. I provided for him. I raised him. I turned him into the man he is today. You taught him that love is conditional. That family is a transaction. That power matters more than truth. And what did you teach him? That abandonment is acceptable as long as you have an excuse. I taught him nothing, because you made sure I wasn't there to teach him anything. Vivian's eyes glittered. You could have fought harder, could have found a way, but you didn't. So don't sit there in your borrowed dress at my table and pretend you're the victim. Margaret felt the words like a knife, because part of her agreed. Part of her had always wondered if she should have fought harder, risked more, been braver. You're right, she said quietly. I could have fought harder. I could have refused your deal and battled you in court. I could have held on and watched you destroy my reputation and drain my resources and maybe, eventually, lose anyway. But I was exhausted, grieving, terrified, and I loved Jason too much to watch him get caught in the crossfire. Love. Vivian practically spat the word. You loved him so much you disappeared. I loved him enough to let him have a good life, even if it meant I couldn't be part of it. That's love. Not what you did. You hoarded him like a possession, controlled him with money, punished anyone who didn't meet your standards. That's not love. That's ownership. The table went silent. Jason was watching his grandmother with an expression Margaret couldn't read. Vivian's face was white, her hands trembling slightly where they gripped her napkin. I want you to leave, Vivian said. Now. She stays. Jason's voice was steel. Then I leave. On your anniversary? At your own gala? Jason gestured to the room, full of guests. Go ahead. Walk out. Explain to everyone why the guest of honor abandoned her own celebration. I'm sure that will look great. Vivian stood. For a moment, Margaret thought she'd actually do it. Just walk out. But after a 10-second silence that felt like an hour, she sat back down. This isn't over, she said. No, Jason agreed. It's not. The first course was cleared. The second arrived. Duck breast with cherry reduction. Margaret ate mechanically, tasting nothing. Around them, the gala continued. Speeches from board members praising Vivian's vision and Jason's leadership. A video montage of Chun Luxury Brand's history. Applause. Margaret watched Vivian accept accolades with perfect grace. Watched her smile and nod and act like her world wasn't cracking apart at the seams. And despite everything, Margaret felt a flicker of something that wasn't quite sympathy, but wasn't quite satisfaction either. Vivian had built an empire, had created something real and lasting, had raised Jason when Margaret couldn't. Those things were true even if her methods were cruel. The main course arrived. Wagyu beef that melted on the tongue. Margaret forced herself to eat. Jason sat beside her, barely touching his food, radiating tension. Then came the moment everyone was waiting for. The master of ceremonies took the microphone. Ladies and gentlemen, it's my honor to introduce the woman who started it all 40 years ago with nothing but a sewing machine and a dream. The founder and chairman of Chun Luxury Brands, Vivian Chun. Applause erupted. Vivian stood, smoothed her gown, and walked to the stage with the confidence of someone who'd never doubted herself. She took the microphone, smiled, let the applause die down. Thank you all for being here tonight. 40 years ago, I arrived in New York with my husband and a small loan. We had no connections, no reputation, just a belief that quality and craftsmanship would always find an audience. Her speech was polished, rehearsed. She talked about the early struggles, the first store, the expansion, the philosophy of excellence that drove every decision. She thanked designers and manufacturers and retail partners. She praised her late husband, Jason's grandfather, who died before Jason was born. But my greatest pride, Vivian said, isn't the company. It's my family. My grandson, Jason, who's taken everything we built and elevated it beyond what I ever imagined. He's brilliant, driven, everything our family could hope for. Jason's jaw clenched. Jason lost his father at 13. It was the darkest time of our lives. But he persevered. We persevered. Together. And now, looking at the man he's become, I know David would be proud. Margaret felt Jason tense beside her. This was it. The moment where Vivian's version of history became official record unless someone challenged it. Jason stood. Every eye in the room turned to him. Vivian faltered mid-sentence. I need to say something. Jason walked toward the stage. His voice carried without a microphone. Actually, there's something everyone should know about how I persevered after my father died. Jason, this isn't the time. I didn't persevere alone. I had my mother. For 3 months after my father's death, she worked 18-hour days to keep me in my school, in my home, in my life. She was there for every tear, every nightmare, every moment I needed her. The room was dead silent. But then my mother disappeared. For 16 years, I thought she'd abandoned me. Thought she'd chosen something else over being my mother. I grew up believing she didn't love me enough to stay. Vivian's face was ashen. Jason, please. I found out today that she didn't leave. She was forced out, given an impossible choice by someone who thought love could be bought and sold like luxury goods. Margaret felt 300 pairs of eyes turn toward her. She wanted to sink through the floor. My mother is here tonight. She was working as a housekeeper in this hotel when I found her, when I found out the truth. And I want everyone to know that she made the hardest choice any parent can make. She gave me up so I could have a better life. He turned back to the audience. My grandmother built an empire. That's true. She's brilliant in business. But she's also someone who forced my mother out of my life and lied about it for 16 years. And I won't sit silently while she rewrites history. The silence was suffocating. Margaret could hear her own heartbeat. Vivian stood at the microphone, her careful composure cracking. You have no idea what you're talking about. Your mother made her choice. You threatened her. You used your money and power to push her out. And then you spent 16 years making me believe a lie. I protected you. You traumatized me. Jason's voice broke. Do you have any idea what it's like to grow up thinking your mother didn't love you? To wonder every single day what you did wrong, what you weren't good enough for? Tears were streaming down his face now. He didn't wipe them away. Mom made mistakes. Maybe she should have fought harder. But she was alone and grieving and terrified, and you used that against her. That's not protection. That's cruelty. Margaret stood. She couldn't watch this anymore. Couldn't let Jason destroy his relationship with his grandmother publicly for her sake. Jason, stop. Please. He turned to her. The pain in his eyes was unbearable. She needs to admit what she did. Maybe she does. But not like this. Not here. Margaret walked to the stage. Every step felt like walking through water. She climbed the stairs, very aware of 300 people watching her in borrowed luxury, and took the microphone from Vivian's frozen hands. My name is Margaret Chin. I'm Jason's mother, and everything he just said is true. The room erupted in whispers. Margaret pushed forward. 16 years ago, I made a choice that destroyed me and hurt my son. I thought I was doing what was best for him. Maybe I was wrong. Maybe I should have fought harder. But I did what I thought was right with the information and resources I had. She looked at Vivian. You used your power to force me out. That was wrong. But you also raised my son, gave him opportunities, helped him become this incredible man. That was right. Both things can be true. She looked at Jason. And you, standing up here, defending me in front of all these people? That's brave and loving and probably foolish. But it's also exactly the kind of man I hoped you'd become. She set the microphone down. This is a celebration. A gala. It should be joyful. So I'm going to leave now and let everyone get back to having a good time. But Jason, if you want to talk tomorrow, call me. If you don't, I understand that too. She started to walk off the stage. Wait. Vivian's voice stopped her. Margaret turned. Vivian looked every one of her 74 years. The perfect facade had crumbled, leaving something raw and almost human. You're right, Vivian said quietly. I forced you out. I used my money and power, and I didn't care what it cost you because I thought I was protecting Jason. I thought love wasn't enough, that he needed stability and opportunity and resources. I thought I was saving him, She looked at Jason. But all I did was hurt him. Hurt you. Made you believe your mother didn't want you when the truth was I didn't want her. Because she wasn't good enough for my standards. Wasn't connected enough. Wasn't wealthy enough. Wasn't the daughter-in-law I'd imagined. Tears ran down her carefully made-up face. I was wrong. I was cruel. And I'm sorry. The words hung in the air. Jason stood frozen. Vivian turned to Margaret. You loved him enough to let him go. I didn't love him enough to let him have his mother. I chose my pride over his happiness. And I've been doing it for 16 years. She walked down from the stage, past Margaret, past Jason, and out of the ballroom. Her assistant scrambled after her. The room stayed silent for 10 long seconds. Then someone started clapping. Then another person. Then suddenly the entire ballroom was applauding, though Margaret wasn't sure what they were applauding for. Jason crossed to her. Are you okay? I don't know. Are you? No. He laughed, a broken sound. But maybe that's okay. The master of ceremonies, bless him, somehow got everyone's attention and transitioned to the dessert course like nothing world-shattering had just happened. Conversations resumed. The gala continued. Margaret and Jason left through a side door. They ended up in a small sitting room off the main lobby. Just the two of them, away from the eyes and whispers. I shouldn't have done that, Jason said. Not publicly. You were right. You were defending me. I can't be mad about that. But I made it worse. For you. For grandmother. For everyone. Maybe. Or maybe some things need to be said publicly because they've been hidden too long. They sat in silence. Jason picked at a loose thread on his jacket. I have so many questions, he finally said. I'll answer all of them. What have you been doing? I mean, I know you've been working, but what's your life been like? Margaret thought about her tiny apartment, her agency work, her lonely dinners, and cheaper than cheap groceries. Quiet. Simple. I clean houses and hotel rooms. I read library books. I watch you from a distance when I can. You've been watching me. Not in a creepy way. Just there are photos online. Articles. I Google you sometimes. Jason's laugh was watery. I Google you too. Did you know that? After I turned 18 and grandmother couldn't stop me, I searched everywhere for you. Hired investigators. Nothing. It's like you vanished. I changed my name. Legally. Margaret Reyes now. My mother's maiden name. Margaret Reyes. He tested it. That's why I couldn't find you. I'm sorry. Stop apologizing. You did what you had to do. I should have done more. You did enough. He reached for her hand. You're here now. That's what matters. Margaret looked at their joined hands. His were soft. Hers were rough from chemicals and work. But they fit together. What happens now? She asked. I don't know. We figure it out. Slowly. Slowly sounds good. Dinner tomorrow? Somewhere without 300 people watching. I'd like that. Jason's phone buzzed. He checked it, frowned. It's grandmother. She wants to talk. You should go. Come with me. Jason, I don't think. Please. We need to do this together. They found Vivian in a private event room on another floor. She'd removed her jewelry and kicked off her heels. She looked smaller somehow. More human. You came, she said when they entered. You asked. Vivian gestured to the chairs across from her. They sat. I meant what I said. About being wrong. About being sorry. Okay, Jason said cautiously. I don't expect forgiveness. Not from either of you. What I did was unforgivable. So why are we here? Margaret asked. Because I want to try to make it right. If that's possible. If you'll let me. Jason leaned back. What does that look like? I don't know. You tell me. The conversation that followed was painful. Vivian explained her reasoning, her fears, her certainty that Margaret couldn't provide what Jason needed. Margaret explained her desperation, her impossible choice, her 16 years of grief. Jason explained his anger, his confusion, his need for truth even when it hurt. There were no easy answers. No moment of perfect reconciliation. But there was honesty, maybe for the first time. I want to be part of his life again, Margaret said. But I don't want to disrupt everything you've built. Everything I built includes a son who thought his mother abandoned him. That needs to be disrupted. I also don't want to erase you, Margaret continued. You raised him. You were there. That matters. Vivian's expression was complicated. Shared custody at our age seems absurd. Not custody. Just presence. I want to be someone he can call. Someone he has dinner with. Someone who's allowed to care about him. That seems reasonable. And I want you to stop pretending I never existed. Stop lying about the past. If people ask about Jason's mother, tell them the truth. The whole truth. Including what I did. Especially what you did. Vivian was quiet for a long moment. That will damage my reputation. Good, Jason said flatly. Jason, you traumatized me. You destroyed Mom's life. You lied for 16 years. Your reputation should be damaged. You're right. Vivian's voice was small. You're absolutely right. They talked until almost midnight. It wasn't comfortable. It wasn't easy. But it was real. Margaret left with Jason's number in her phone and a dinner date for the next evening. She took the subway home in her borrowed dress, drawing stares from the late-night crowd. Her apartment looked smaller than usual. Shabbier. But it was hers. She'd earned it with her own hands. And tomorrow, she'd see her son again. She changed into pajamas, made tea, and sat by the window watching the city lights. Somewhere out there, Jason was probably still processing. Vivian was probably regretting her public confession. And Margaret was finally, after 16 years, allowed to be a mother again. It wouldn't be perfect. Jason had years of hurt to work through. Vivian had a lifetime of control to unlearn. Margaret had poverty and distance, and missed years between them. But it was a start. 3 weeks later, Margaret sat in a different kind of restaurant. Nothing fancy. A Thai place in Queens where Jason had apparently been going since college. They'd met for dinner 7 times now. Coffee twice. One awkward but meaningful lunch with Vivian present. I'm thinking about going back to jewelry design, Margaret said, pushing pad thai around her plate. Really, I kept some of my old pieces. I could maybe start selling online. Small scale. Just to see if I still have it. You have it. I remember those pieces. They were beautiful. You were 8. You thought everything was beautiful. I was right. Margaret smiled. Grandmother offered me money. To start a studio. I told her no. Why? Because I need to do this myself. Prove I can. Does that make sense? Complete sense. They ate in comfortable silence for a moment. She wants to have family dinner, Jason said. All 3 of us. She suggested her place, but I said neutral territory. Maybe that Mediterranean restaurant I like. Are we ready for that? Probably not, but we're doing it anyway. Okay. When? Next Sunday. I'll be there. Jason reached across the table and squeezed her hand. Thank you for staying. For not leaving when things got hard. I'm never leaving again. Even if I'm annoying. Especially if you're annoying. That's the mom contract. They laughed, and it felt like breathing after being underwater for 16 years. Outside the restaurant, they hugged goodbye. Margaret took the subway home, thinking about jewelry designs and family dinners and second chances. Her phone buzzed. A text from Vivian. I've been thinking about your old designs. I still have some of your pieces from before. Would you like them back? Margaret stared at the message. Vivian had kept her jewelry? For 16 years? She typed back. Yes. Thank you. Another text. Sunday. 7 p.m. The Mediterranean place. Don't be late. I won't. Margaret put her phone away and looked out the subway window at the dark tunnel walls rushing past. Somewhere ahead was light. Somewhere ahead was a dinner table with her son and the woman who'd stolen 16 years from her, but also kept pieces of who she used to be. It wasn't forgiveness yet. Maybe it would never be forgiveness. But it was something. Forward motion. Progress. The train emerged from the tunnel into the night. City lights spread out below. Margaret caught her reflection in the window. She looked tired. Older. But her eyes were different than they'd been 3 weeks ago. She looked like someone who had hope.